Hello, hi, and I don't think this is the right setting. It does not show the too far away. Want you to see my sculpture? It's the backdrop. Backdrop. My sculpture backdrop. The cameras. Maybe go to the back. This move it a little. Oh, Plato is visible. Okay, Plato as backdrop, and I'm going to discuss a little bit of Plato, the complete works of Plato. It's my son's book. This was part of his undergraduate degree and also during his private high school days, Abelard school days. And I've chosen the chapter on justice. So this is, so Socrates discussing with a friend. So these are, um, edited by James M. Cooper. So Plato was Socrates' disciple, right? And so, it's just a little, okay, and so various arguments on justice. There's no way of measuring what is just and what is unjust. So this is Socrates discussing with a friend, and who with a friend, several disjointed questions about justice. So I looked through the chapter, read some of it, and chose one item that I want you to note, dear viewers. And so the yardstick. So how do you decide what is small and large by measuring the scale, and then what is tall and short and tall by what is small. So the exact words here is measuring. So yardstick of measure, right? Besides the measuring stick, what skill do we use? Isn't it skill in measuring? Right, skill in measuring. So friends say, Socrates says, what about distinguishing what's light and what's heavy? Don't we do it with a scale? Friend says, yes, besides the scale, what skill do we use, says Socrates. Is there skill in weighing? And that sort of thing. All right. And so this is more, it's like a back and forth. So he's getting the friend to come out with his own thoughts and, reasoning, and so that's typically, a teacher, a professor. And so that's what, and so they're talking about judges and what is just and what is unjust. So I'm going to read out my first and second pleas, which I had presented as written arguments previously. But there's a problem with my email, I hear, and but luckily my written submissions, endeavors, work, and they have all gone. But these two haven't gone, and I followed these two up with video pleas. So it's kind of not painting a complete picture out, because I really strove to make the written pleas very good, because it was my only chance. All right, because I'm arguing that I have to be published and paid some amount of money, but not a lot of money. I'm not asking for a lot of money. I'm repeating this again. So the point of the whole debate is going to be, so Plato is at the back. He says demos and kratos, and in a democracy, justice is guaranteed. So in a democracy, what is just, what is unjust, right? Yeah. So that and it's interesting that Greece took on democracy after being an empire, Alexander's empire, right? Greek Empire, 323 BC, and etc. And then so that speaks very highly in favor of the ancient Greek civilization. So one point what I want to say is, so there's more, because Socrates, well, he was tried in court and etc. Right? So he had argued in favor of lying, deceiving, and stealing, and But given the circumstances, of course, remember, that there's always circumstance, but nothing excuses. But then, there's this whole. I think I spoke about this whole scene in a Hindi movie. The his older brother is a big crook, and this guy is a police inspector, and he chases a young kid who was accused of robbing. He chases him all the way, and the kid, I think, dies, being he's run over by a train because he's trying to cross the railway tracks, and he the inspector catches him, and then he's sad. Of course, the kid has died. Is a teenager kid, a teenage boy, and he sees it's just a loaf of bread. So was it so wrong of him? But it depends, right? I mean, lots of loaves of bread, and just this whole family who's selling it, who's selling it, becomes a pauper and that sort of thing. So Socrates, and I have to read this, and you read this too, the entire court argument, etc. Socrates being taken to trial, and I, all right, lying. So I wanted to say, oh, so this question, are unjust people wicked? Socrates asks. Friend says yes. Socrates, so they are wicked and unjust to unwillingly? And the friend says absolutely. And Socrates says, and they act unjustly because they're unjust? Friend says yes. So Socrates says, so unwillingly? Friend says, of course, because the friend cannot maybe, perceive of, an unjust person acting unjustly willingly. He has to make excuses, right? In sometimes because, you're so pure, so unwillingly. Socrates, clearly what's done willingly doesn't happen unwillingly. Friend, it couldn't. And acting unjustly, Socrates, comes about because there is injustice. Friend, yes, an injustice is unwilled. Friend, unwilled, yes. Socrates, then they act unjustly and are unjust and wicked unwillingly. Friend, unwillingly, it seems. Injustice is, so in a court of law, Supreme Court of Law, injustice would not be right. So even if they were to act unwillingly on this the act of injustice, it would not behove the Supreme Court of Canada. All right, so here goes. So my first and second, please just drink a small sip of water. And sorry. So you expect, so there's Plato before behind me, and okay, I'll have to read this. Okay, so my argument submission to the Supreme Court of Canada. Honorable Chief Justice of the Supreme Court of Canada and the panel of Chief Justices of the Supreme Court of Canada. I'm defending my rights in a democracy as fair as Canada. A democracy grants equal rights to its citizens. When I took the help of the Supreme Court of Canada, said that the parties to whom I have made, to whom I had made and have made several submissions of good work in three areas, one being my area of academic and work qualifications, chemical engineering and related fields, and the other two areas being fields where I have been published in East Indian, American, and Canadian newspapers and on the internet, and in one specific genre of my creative nonfiction. I have academic qualifications. I have good men who made just decisions and were in this instance not living up to their reputation and did not possess the right models of rewarding hard work and intelligence with just rewards of publication and payment. And I'm drawing your attention to the written remarks I made at the very beginning of my request to the Chief Justice. The Charter of Rights and Freedom grants its citizens protection against unreasonable laws, and I shall extend this to unreasonable actions or therein the lack of proper action. Society grants its working public certain privileges, which it has not laid out in writing, but the history of peoplekind has ensured that there be a fair exchange of certain privileges for valuable input, and I'm pointing to the fact that there may not have been intellectual property violation except for the odd usage of my submitted material, but the fact remains that I've been denied proper acknowledgement and proper author privileges and proper referencing, possibly by these proper parties. I do not deny that they gave me an audience and some form of encouragement, if not actually in bold lettering conveyed to me. I've been told that these official parties are willing to give me copyright protection and are willing to grant me both publication and some payment of money. In each case, be that it may, that it is not a large sum of money. All I seek at this stage is an internet publication under the understanding that after 2 weeks of being published, I can pass on the links to leading book publishers for a greater sum of money. These three parties say that they do not have funds to have me published and paid, even though this might be the just course of action to take. As a woman, I say that they have led me on to expect publication with payment because they accepted my work, and even as have been informed through extraneous sources, encouraged me. And I'm glad that they did so, for working in the blind is really hard. And also in some emails, and I must state that my email inbox is not all efficient and fair, or I'm jumping to conclusions and it may have been a technical glitch. And in some emails said that they may have me published and paid a small sum of money as an e-check. Needless to say, this holy grail was never granted to me. I have been inspired by the argument made by the character Atticus Finch in Harper Lee's To Kill a Mockingbird. And as I plead for justice from you, Chief Justice, and the panel of Chief Justices, justice that has been denied to me all these 5+ years, despite myself strengthening my position as an engineer, writer, artist, justice that you grant every single time you consultant, because that is an inherent quality in the office that you hold, justice that the Supreme Court of Canada is held synergistic with, justice that makes you, as in America, hold the power to being the highest authority in Canada, along with the Prime Minister of Canada and the Canadian Charter of Rights and Freedom. If an opposing party challenges this argument, saying that this is what is expected of an institution like the Supreme Court of Canada, I say that Veritas holds the book of law in her hands, and the right decision at the right time for the right cause rests entirely with the Supreme Court of Canada. Law and order and law and justice have existed since the time of monarchy. The other day, it occurred to me that the French Revolution, the slogan of which was equality, liberty, and fraternity, was unjust, for it led many people to the guillotine without giving them a chance to defend themselves. Guillotine, right? Guillotine. Without giving them a chance to defend themselves. The Declaration of Independence in the USA proclaimed all men are created equal, but America itself granted citizenship privileges to only white men. Canada itself had a deplorable record of sexism, which translated to fewer privileges for the female sex until things took a favorable turn in recent times under Justin Trudeau and Mark Carney. But this, again, in my direction, is a paradox because they have behaved in a sexist way, and ditto for Professor Allen and Mr. Brault and Mr. Walmsley. Am I resorting to name calling? It is only because if they have been known to be fair to all the female feminists, then they chose to ignore the fact that I'm working very hard and I'm sending them competitive work. I'm fair in the sense that I'm asking only publication with payment and not some form of penalty to each of these three official bodies. I ask for law and justice in my direction and not just retribution, for I have tremendous respect for all three of these parties who have, in their own way, raised the quality of my work. But I say that they have no respect for me as an engineer, writer, artist, and I ask of you, Chief Justice of the Supreme Court of Canada, and the panel of Chief Justices of the Supreme Court of Canada, to grant me publication with some payment rights by these parties, and this would magnify the trust placed by wronged individuals like me in your institution. In Harper Lee's book, Atticus Finch lost to a greater evil, racism, and in this case, I sincerely hope that sexism against me, probably unconscious, for they're all feminists in their own right, could be the culprit. Please let them see the error of their ways and grant me the right action of all of my submissions being published and me paid in the form of a check. of e-checks, in the form of e-checks. The Supreme Court of Canada is based on the foundation that in its, quote, red carpeted interiors with dark walnut wood, unquote, justice is granted, and this justice is laid out in black and white terms and is written out in its records. I seek justice for hard work and intelligence and state that a country with its finest of institutions not rewarding these qualities is a country that fails to live up to the standards of the fabric of its DNA. Please do not let me down, for I have faith in every Chief Justice who sits in these fine interiors of your Supreme Court of Canada. Faith in each of their abilities to see that I am placing my implicit trust in your sense of right and wrong, and sense of justice and injustice, and sense of values and disvalue, and sense of morality and immorality, and sense of an individual's worth and the same individual's worthlessness. I have to emphasize that your right decision would personify the positive equality in each of these sets of words with their anti-words, seeking your help because I truly believe that you have the same quality as I possess, faith in this country and in the system of social values to lead me to a greater glory, which is publication with payment. Thank you. So that was my first written plea, and the Chief Justice was complimentary, but he had not even received my. Going back, second plea, my second written plea. I think it's shorter. So for those of you, plea two, my plea two. My exhibits two can be so. This is my plea two. I have brought out. All right. My exhibits, it can be my exhibits. It can be more work in all of my, and I did choose to submit more work in all of my chosen areas of work. But may I be allowed to say that I've presented 5 or 6 technical videos in chemical engineering and related engineering and engineering mathematics fields for this particular reason. But in addition, I have more of those. I've also presented one endeavor each in my other areas of work that turned to many more endeavors. A political essay, my creative nonfiction story in my Blue Jay Sports story series, my creative nonfiction stories in my Workaholic, Shopaholic, Sexaholic series, a literary poem, a children's story, a short story of fiction. And I have actually turned in more of these as well to the Supreme Court of Canada and the parties, official parties. I suggest that you look at my newspaper and internet essays, and of course, take a look at my academic and work files in chemical engineering, my C programming certificate in Unix. I confirm that there are no precedents in Canadian court cases, Supreme Court of Canada or otherwise. In American courts, there is the case of Publish America, where the plaintiff said that they were lured into. I'll include the internet publication. There is, writer beware.blog, so that's the file, and you can look it up. The case was dropped by the plaintiffs, 3 of them. So that the details of the case are on the website. All these 3 parties to whom have submitted several pieces of work under the good faith that they will have all of it published, and I paid some amount of money, have chosen to go against the existing order of work, good work in society. Humankind began with the barter system, which slowly developed into work or labor for money and work privileges. In my case, work privileges are publications of all of my work and payment for all of my work. I'm not asking for much, for at this time, under the good faith that I shall be published by a book publisher after this, I'm asking for an internet publication with copyright protection and a fair sum of money, which can even be a lucky $10, a lucky loony even, straight from the highest authority in Canada, Prime Minister, or the Chief Justice. Well, debatable. President Trump again, arguing that the U.S. Supreme Court U.S. Supreme Court has too much power. So, anyways, I'm asking for an internet for internet publication with copyright protection and a fair sum of money, for I hope to be paid a larger sum by book publishers. If the 3 parties, all men and women of standing in society and work, and good men and standing in society and work, and good men and women who not acted against the courts of society and humanity ever before, do not have funding to have all of my work published, and I paid the small sum of money, that they should have the conscience at least to pay me, for I'm good at all of my work submissions. Then they should have one or two pieces of my work published on the internet and pay me at least, for they cannot deny that I taught them some research material or some political strategy or some writing tips, $50 each. They should see to it that I have a copy of all the rest of my submissions to books publishers. Seven, there is law and order and justice, the foundation of Canada and the world. The last time I presented an argument for myself, and I'm awaiting a fair decision, the right decision for me, which is to have all of my work published, and I paid some money and I'm awaiting. All right. Perhaps the Supreme Court of Canada could, if it is the right way of operation of legal claims, pay for the publication of all of work submissions, and I be paid some money in each of my three areas of work. I appeal to you, Chief Justice of the Supreme Court of Canada and the panel of Chief Justices of the Supreme Court of Canada, to not deny me justice as these three parties have, the right decision which will see to it that all of my work submissions are given publication with some payment as they all deserve. All of you have good moral standing and good character, which makes law and justice a judgment of morality, with good morals winning over lesser thoughts. Most of you may be of Christian faith and religion, and remember the foundation of your religion is based on the sad truth that Jesus Christ was denied justice, even if he had law on his side. If you choose to deny me at my request, then you are crucifying the existent code of good work and its just rewards. It would hurt many people who work as I do and are not rewarded with publication and payment or money alone in some cases. Nine, I picture a cross with Veritas and a book of law nailed to the corners of the cross, as Jesus Christ was. To you, all law and justice are a religion more than just being your profession. You breathe in and breathe out justice in the atmosphere of law. Thank you, Gayatri Bisitara. So those were my two written pleas, and I had no idea that they had not reached the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court of Canada, who in turn would have, shared it with the panel of Chief Justices. So presented those, and once again, unjust in my case, is wicked. So Socrates defending this, even Socrates would have a hard time defending this. All right, signing off, Gayatri Bisitaram. Thank you so much for listening to me, Chief Justice, and all my viewers.